part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And welcome to another Reghi Roda podcast powered by MGM Northfield Park right here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And we've got to give some love, a shout out, a pat on the back, a salute to our fantastic producer, Ty Courts, who makes sure all of this gets out to you, in the podcatosphere. So Ty, thank you for everything you do. And Michael Reghi, the Browns today, something very, very rare. Well, a couple of things that were very, very rare. Number one, a shutout, the first since 2007. Number two, a game where it didn't come down to the final minutes or the final play as they destroyed, demolished, and annihilated the Arizona Cardinals today, 27-0 in Deshaun Watson's return. It was kind of comforting if you're a Browns fan to have a game like that, wasn't it?
No question about that, Kenny. It made me think about, you remember that mid-December huge snow fest back in 2007?
Yeah.
Remember that 8-0 win over Buffalo? It had me thinking about that, as you mentioned, shutout. Well, it's the first time since then. Yeah. And that, of course, was played in about some of the worst weather conditions you could have to try to play a football game. But, yeah, Kenny, and the thing, again, look, Arizona's bad, right? They're not a good football team. We know that. But then, given that, you want to see the Browns flex their muscle, especially defensively, go out and really dominate. And, I mean, Ken, they gave up 58 total net yards on the day to Arizona. 41 rushing, 17 passing. And so they did just that. They dominated. They absolutely skewered Arizona. And so it's good to see. It's a good feel to be able to get to 5-3. Yeah, against a bad football team, but this is what you should. Can you imagine what we'd be talking about if they struggled today against this Arizona team?
Yeah, Reg, this was the perfect game for Deshaun Watson to return, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
He needed to get back, get into a game situation, game speed, take a couple of hits, see if that shoulder was okay. And he ran 3 times for 22 yards and took a couple of hits. And it looks like he came away fine, but he needed to shake off the rust before the next 2, which are divisional games at Baltimore and against Pittsburgh. And we'll get to those a little later. So this was what the doctor ordered, right? This was the cure to all of his ills, if you will. Play the Arizona Cardinals with Looney Tunes at quarterback, and they sacked Looney Tunes 7 times today. 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, a fumble. I think they were 1 of 12 on third downs, and like you said, 58 total yards of offense, 3rd fewest in Browns history. So it all came together today for the defense to get back on the right track and for Deshaun Watson to get a game in. And while he started slow, Michael, he finished pretty well. And I thought he played a solid game and didn't turn the ball over, which is what they need from him.
That's exactly right. Now, I know it's been separated by a couple of weeks, Ken, because, I think when he went out last week, he only threw 5 passes before he left for the day. But I know it's a 3 to 4 week in game separation, but if you go back to, I think it was at last against Indianapolis, he played well, if you remember, in that one, right? Threw for 200 and
well, actually, Reg, that's the last time he played. He played at Indy and was 1 of 5 in that game. I think the one he played well was the Tennessee game.
You're right.
Where he had his best game as a Brown.
Yep, you got it. You got it. That's correct. Indy was the 1 of 5. Yep. Tennessee, the week before that real strong performance. So, like I said, I know it's been separated now by a few weeks, but, we want to see Watson. We always talk about quarterbacks being able to stack games up, right? Stack strong performances up. Well, so, if we go back, and again, we know that there's some extenuating circumstances involved, but the last 2 games he's played full, he has played very, very well. And so the hope is, Kenny, he could continue to do that. He seems to be getting a better feel for his offensive mates, the offense in general that he's there to lead and operate. So, I'm starting to feel a little better, Ken. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about what his playing capabilities will be.
First 4 or 5 passes, Reg, ground balls, right? The touch passes he seemed to struggle with. A couple of the long balls today, I thought both connections to Cooper were outstanding. Threw a couple of other long balls, which looked decent. So like I said, he needed a game before the important division games, and this was the perfect game for him to go out there and, Reg, not only physically for him, right, but mentally for him to say, yeah, okay, I can play with this pain that's in my shoulder, however, strong or minor it is. And I can go out and still succeed running and throwing the football. So it was a confidence builder, and that may have been as important as the physical side of things for Deshaun Watson.
Without question. And he alluded to that as, I wanted to see what he brought out in terms of, when he spoke to the media post game. So he alluded to exactly that,
okay.
Kenny. The confidence that he feels that right now he's starting to feel because of, the better health with the ability to throw the football the way he wants to. And I'm fine with that. I don't want him to be running too much, Ken. I'll be real honest with you. I'd like to minimize the amount of hits he takes, I mean, look, man, the more you throw the football and get in a groove with your receiving core, I think the better off the Browns are going to be offensively. And I think we know that, when they have to run the football, that they'll be able to do that adequately. I don't think it's ever going to be, a run game that's going to get you 150 to 200 yards a week. But if they can do it adequately and be an ally with what Watson does with a pass game, and be a good fit with it, you know what? I think we're going to maybe start to see some better things for the Browns offensively. And hell, Ken, the way this defense is playing, it's not going to take a whole lot offensively. I mean, you almost got the feeling now if they can go out and get 20, 23, 24 points, they got a good shot to win, right?
As long as they don't turn the ball over. And that was the biggest thing in the difference between this game and the loss at Seattle, right? PJ Walker, again, turning the ball over. And in his starts, he had 6 turnovers. Well, I shouldn't say all 3 starts. He started 2 and then came in for Watson against Indianapolis. But still, the 3 games he played, the majority of the time, PJ Walker turned it over 6 times. Well, Watson, if he can just grasp this mentally, Reg, right? And you might have to check your ego at the door on this, okay? You don't have to be the Deshaun Watson from 3 or 4 years ago where you won or were the only reason your team won in Houston, right? You just have to go out, make some plays, don't make the mistakes, and rely on your defense, which is healthy, whereas your offense is not, minus Nick Chubb, Jack Conklin, and now it could be without Jed Wills for a while as he went down with a knee injury. So if he can understand that and realize that, all right, punting the ball is okay on occasion, right? Instead of turning it over and forcing the issue, then the Browns could be in a lot of games with a chance to win them.
Well, no question about that. I mean, turnovers are killers. That's they'll turn wins into losses in a big hurry. You know, we see that all the time, every Sunday in the National Football League. So no, I'm with you on that. That's the biggest thing. Play clean offensively. You don't turn it over. I tell you, makes me think of Jim Tressel and all his years with Ohio State. We'll just punt the damn ball. You know, you have the punt turn into a good play and get your defense back on the football field. So obviously you want better than that. But again, I'm starting to feel like that we're starting to see the type of progression, as we just alluded to, Kenny, that we want offensively. And let's be honest now, if we're talking about a playoff football team's going to win, we know that that's going to be necessary.
Sure.
Because you're right. I mean, you're going to have this offense starting to. There might be a couple of football games you got to put up 30 to be able to win it.
Yep.
Now, I know. Again, we're talking about how great the Browns D has been, sure, but as you said, hell, it might happen next week against Baltimore. Going in there, you might need 24, 27 points to be able to win against our pal Lamar and his and those Ravens.
Reg, I just looked it up while you were talking. Corey Bojorquez today, the punter for the Browns, punted the ball 7 times for an average of 58.6 yards per punt with 2 inside the 20 and a long of 73. And when you mentioned Tressel, Jim always used the most important play in football is punt. What other player you guaranteed 40 yards every time you go to it, right? Well, today it garnered 59 yards every time they went to it. So, this guy can flip the field, and thus put your defense in a positive position, right? To make the opponents drive the length of the field as opposed to a short field after a turnover. So that's why I said the punt needs to be a friendly word in the vocabulary of Deshaun Watson moving forward for this football team.
Well, without doubt. And if you get a chance, the Browns PR squad, they always put out the post game right after wins, where Kevin Stefanski, and today, Kenny, today Stefanski gave one of the hey, 3 cheers for Corey Bojorquez, because he laid out to the football team what he did punting the football while he's averaging 59 yards a punt today. So. Yeah, it's not sexy, and it's not what everybody wants to start to discuss when you're talking about the opportunity to have your football team set yourself apart in a portion of the game. But hey, listen, man, it's huge. It's huge, and the Browns can make it while their defense is playing like this. You get their opponents on having to go long fields, right, to put points on the board?
Yep.
Yeah, you make it a field position game at times. So hope Bojorquez could keep doing what he's doing with the way he's booting the football right now. And the Browns can use that in alliance with their defense, Kenny, as a legitimate weapon for their success.
Stefanski and Ryan Day are supposed to be offensive-minded guys, but both teams are winning ugly because of their defense and scoring just enough to win games, and put more in the W than in the L column. So if they can accept that, and maybe it's not Deshaun Watson that we need to, have worry about that. If Kevin Stefanski can accept that, right, Michael? Because, he wants to sling it all over the place and that. And I know they didn't run for a good average and whatnot, but hey, run the ball, Tip, how about 3 cheers to Kevin Stefanski for giving the ball to Kareem Hunt at the 3-yard line today and letting him go in and score a touchdown for the 4th consecutive game. How about that?
Love it. Love it. I mean, we started talking about this, I believe it was last week, 2 weeks ago, about Kareem Hunt. I say inside the 10, when you're going in, certainly inside the 5. Kenny, I think he's one of the best finishing running backs in the National Football League. Now, he's not maybe what he was in the Kansas City days, okay? But he finishes. He gets in the end zone. And, you can run inside and use some of that strength of that O-line you got, in those A and B gaps. And boom, he's in the end zone and he finishes. So he finishes drives. And as you said, he did it again. And I love when they get an opportunity for Hunt to do just that, finish as, they go on a drive and you get inside the 10 and, hell, you got to give it to him 3 times in a row, maybe even 4. He'll get in the house for you. I feel good about that.
Yeah. And what I liked today too, Reg, was the playmakers made plays. Amari Cooper made plays. Hey, friendly bounce this week. It wasn't friendly last week off the helmet, right? So it evens it out from the football gods. And Cooper catches a touchdown pass, but made 2 other great catches on good throws from Deshaun Watson. So that's one playmaker scoring a touchdown. David Njoku, blown coverage, catches a touchdown pass. That's what you want your playmakers to do. And Kareem Hunt, He is a playmaker, in my opinion, for them. So those are your top three playmakers, and check, and check. They all scored touchdowns today, and Watson threw 2 and didn't turn it over. Check, playmaker right there. And that's just on offense. How about 7 sacks from the defense today, led by Dalvin Tomlinson's 2.5, and, of course, Myles Garrett with a sack and a fumble recovery today as well.
Oh, I loved it. And Kenny, Dalvin Tomlinson. And how about these other guys, man? How about Jordan Elliott today? Another sack. He's got 3 on the year. How about Shelby Harris today, right?
I didn't even realize he was on the team, Reg. I forgot all about Shelby Harris.
Yeah. Well, I remember us talking about him during the preseason, and could he become a factor? But how about today, Kenny? 3 tackles, a sack, 2 quarterback hurries, and a forced fumble.
Yep.
Now, I mean, if you're a D lineman, that's stuff in the stat sheet, man, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, Zadarius Smith had a sack today, too. Like to see him continuing to pressure the quarterback from that other edge outside of Myles Garrett, because, Ken, if they can get this kind of contribution from their D line, and then turn that into with the linebackers, with Walker and Taki, turn that into the front 6, front 7 at times. Listen, again, now you're, as we just talked about offensively, this team's got the chance to play excellent complementary football, and that's what it's going to take to be a winner in the playoffs.
Let's give another playmaker a tip of the cap. Denzel Ward with another pick, and a great pick at that. Reacting to it, hauling it in, not letting the ball hit the ground, and Sione Taki dropping in his read on defense and getting a pick as well. So the defense, phenomenal, Reg. I saw a stat here. It said here, third fewest in Browns history, the 58 yards.
Yep.
The only time they've given up fewer yards, 47 to the Bears in, I think it was 2021 maybe. And then 53 to the Steelers back in 1989. So all the years the Browns have been playing football, that's the third fewest total yards they've given up in a game to go along with the shutout.
Yeah, well, and listen, can they keep playing this well? I think so. Again, now there's going to be greater challenges than the Arizona Cardinals,
right?
As we were talking about. But again, you like to see it. You like to see the way, and I got a feeling, Kenny, that this defense is kind of taking on the tone. You know what? We're going to win football games if we have to. If the offense is having a rough day or a poor day, we're still going to carry the torch to find a way for us to be in the win column. And hell, I love that about a defense. I mean, long time ago, but you think back to those 85 Bears, and I mean, that was their thing. We'll just shut everybody out every week, and hell, our offense gives us anything at all, we win. So, I know the game's not quite that way any longer, and we know, they're going to need offensive performance, but this defense makes you feel pretty damn good about how they're playing.
It is the strength of the team, and they will rely on it. I know it gave up 39 points in that 38 points in that Indianapolis game, but okay, you're allowed to have one of those every once in a while, but when you give up turnovers and short fields, it's tough to defend. But today, they answered the bell. They did to a rookie quarterback what they should have. They got the win. Everybody got right, hopefully, today for the Browns going into next week's game against the Baltimore Ravens, Reg. And let's get a break in right here on the R&R podcast. And when we come back, let's take a look at the AFC North standings and preview next week's game between the Browns and the Ravens in Baltimore. We'll do that right here on the Press Play Podcast Network when we come back.
What's up, everyone? I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Tyrus Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need to get you through the regular season, hopeful postseason, and I'd say off-season, Tyvis, but is there really ever an off-season for this team?
Thankfully for our podcast, Holly, there really never is when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. Don't miss our breakdown of each week's matchup, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
Yes, they do. So hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger, Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey, the Roadman Kenny Roda here for the Reghi Roda podcast. And Northfield Park, I got to tell you about them. They're your home for live and simulcast racing. Catch the excitement of that live harness racing every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday evening with a 6 p.m. post time. Wager and win daily on top thoroughbred and harness tracks from around the world with action starting right around noon. Free admission, free parking every day at Northfield Park. And when you head there, tell them Reghi and Roda sent you.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we continue with the Reghi and Roda podcast brought to you by MGM Northfield Park here on the Press Play Podcast Network. And Michael, a good win for the Browns, 27-0 over the Cardinals at home. As we mentioned in the last segment, hopefully a get-right game for Deshaun Watson, the defense, and everybody. And they needed that going into next week's game on the road at Baltimore, who's playing as well as anybody in the NFL right now. They sit atop the AFC North at 7-2, while the Steelers and Browns are in second place, a game and a half back at 5-3. And as we're taping this, the Bengals are 4-3 playing the Buffalo Bills tonight. And if they win, they'll be 5-3 as well. So this division proving to be one of the top divisions in all of the NFL right now.
Well, Kenny, without question. And I'm going to ask you.
All right.
We brought his name up there a moment ago. He's the leader of their football team. Are the Baltimore Ravens right now the best football team in the NFL?
Boy, you know, Reg, the only team I would take over them right now, the Philadelphia Eagles. They won a big game today against their rival, right? The Dallas Cowboys. They're 8-1. I like their defense and playoff experience a little bit more, but in the AFC, it's Baltimore and Kansas City right now atop the AFC without question. And yeah, they're the best in the division at this point in the season at 7-2.
Yeah, and I'll give you Philly. I just wanted to throw them out there. I do think they're, to me, Baltimore I'm speaking of, I do think they're top 3 or 4 in the entire league. And again, same thing. You know what you're going to get from them defensively. I mean, and when Watson's playing well, they can go put 30 up as well. So, yeah, but I mean, this is going to be something, and I'm glad the Browns are going in there next week, Ken. I mean, I think it's a good time, and you got to play them twice anyway. I already played them once. So now you go in there when you're playing well. And the Browns are coming off a couple wins, and so they got to feel good about their opportunity to go in there. And, I just want to see a strong performance, Kenny. Give yourself an opportunity to win because probably, maybe not, but, you might have to see them a third time if we're talking about the playoff pairings and matchups as well. You don't know, you might. So, I'd love to see them play well and grab that win next week.
Reg, I still think Cincinnati is a team to definitely watch out for, right? With Joe Burrow and his ability to jackpot Joey to make big plays in big games. I still have my doubts about Lamar Jackson, okay? The regular season, MVP 1 year, he's been outstanding, but he struggles in the postseason for whatever reason, whether that's self-inflicted mentally, buckling under the pressure, whether teams that are playing him in the playoffs have a better idea of how to stop him, knowing it's a one-and-done situation. I don't know what it is, But I just, if I'm rating the quarterbacks, and this is where I always lean come playoff time, which team I like better, I still have, Joe Burrow as the best quarterback in this division. And Lamar's right there, number 2 this year, based on the way he's playing. Okay. But I still like Jackpot Joey. And so this division, I think it's far from over as far as who's going to be crowned the champion. I think 2 teams for sure are going to make the playoffs, and who knows, maybe 3 end up getting in with the division winner and 2 wild cards.
Yep.
But I do know this, we're going to get a good idea of where the Browns are as a team next Sunday at Baltimore. Defensively, how do they handle Lamar Jackson, right? And then offensively, second game back for Deshaun Watson. Okay, was it a get-right game? And is he ready to roll? And are we going to see even a better Deshaun Watson next week?
It's going to have a significant amount of meaning, I think is what we're trying to say.
Yes.
It's one of those games that you kind of attach a little bit more to, right? Number one, yes, division against a rival, but as you laid out so very well, against a team that's looking like right now they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the division, and as I said, the AFC in the conference, and as I said, to me, Kenny, for sure, I think they're a top 5 team in the National Football League. I mean, the way they're playing now, very true what you brought up about Lamar Jackson, though. I mean, here's a guy that has got to show that he can get that done. And, if you listen to, the folks in Be More, they bring that up all the time. Is the implosion going to come in January for them, right? Meaning the playoffs. And he's got to prove that that isn't going to be the case. But albeit still, we're a long way from there. But the point is that this is important next week for the Browns. You don't want to go in there and have a poor performance and lay an egg, right? I mean, there's too much going on right now with how the Browns are trying to take that step to, be at least feeling like they're compared with and the equal of this team that's leading their own division, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I went back. I wanted to make sure the score. Week number 4, they lose 28-3 at home to the Ravens, right?
Yeah, you can't have that again.
No.
That's maybe their poorest performance of the year because all the good things we've been talking about, right? And I know you say, well, everything's week to week and everything's a 1-game season. Okay, but, I think there's a lot that's got to be shown and proven next week by the Browns on this trip to Baltimore because Ken just brought up the score. Well, you have another game, a performance like that where it's dominated by Baltimore. I'm sorry, then regardless, say, well, the Browns are – how can you feel good, though, Ken, about what the postseason may bring when you're having this kind of issue with the team in your own damn division? So, yeah, this is big next week. It's more than, to me, it's kind of like carries the weight of maybe 2 games next week, Ken. Got to play well. They got to play well next week. They can't have that kind of implosion like you were just bringing up the first time they met.
All right, Reg, we'll see what the Browns do, in a week's time, and we'll break it down for everybody here on the R&R podcast. But before we get out of here, let's give some love to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who tonight at home knocked off the Golden State Warriors 115-104, led by 31 from Donovan Mitchell, 24 from Darius Garland, and 15 from Max Strus. All 5 starters, and they're finally healthy, right? Mobley, Allen, Garland, Mitchell, Strus, all 5 starters in double figures, and a double-double from Evan Mobley tonight as well. 13 points, 16 rebounds in that win today.
Good to see Jared Allen back, Kenny. I think, I know, last year we gave him, and I think every Cavalier fan, you gave him a lot of heat. He wasn't good in the playoffs. We know that against the Knicks, and he kind of became the whipping boy for that.
Yes.
Then we have to worry about, well, is this guy tough enough mentally?
Mm-hmm.
right, to handle this?
Yeah.
We don't know because he soft-spoken, gives off the aura of just being, the Mr. Nice Guy, gentle giant. Well, yeah. So there's questions about him, right? But You're right. If the Browns could get him playing the Browns, listen to me, talking football. If Cavaliers could get him playing well and consistently, that you know what you're going to get every night. And like I said, if he has nights where he only scores 6, 8, fine. But you got to board and you got to defend, right?
Yep.
I mean, for him, it's very important. You got to board and you got to defend because you can't have, Evan Mobley be the guy that you lay all of that on in the back line of that defense. So let's hope Allen can just keep up very consistent play that includes, a lot of vim and vigor on the defensive end.
The one thing I will say, Reg, the Warriors aren't the most physical team in the league, right?
Nope.
It's always about matchups, right?
Yep.
Matchups. How do you do against specific teams? Well, finesse team Cavaliers, finesse team with a little of physicality when Draymond's in there playing, right, with the Warriors, but it might be the matchup. This was a good matchup, and I'm just looking at the numbers. The Cavaliers from 3-point range were 11 of 37, Warriors 16 of 41, but the Cavaliers shot almost 50% from the field tonight and out-rebounded the Warriors 54-44. So sometimes it's about matchups, other times it's about, all right, the want to, as you like to say, and other times it's about getting everybody healthy and finally getting everybody on the same page because you haven't played together, and hopefully that's starting to happen for the Cavaliers moving forward.
Yeah, I hope so too, because same thing with them. You want to show that they're able to play with the big boys in the NBA and that that they're going to be, prepared for it in terms of understanding that, you don't want to be labeled a soft team and that, teams can go and take advantage of that against you. That's the last thing you want. So, and I think there's many that feel that. The Cavaliers, they're kind of all yak, and when it comes time to being tough, they don't have that. So we're going to find out if they can kind of add that to their arsenal as we go forward here this year.
All right, Reg, always great to catch up with you, my friend, breaking it down with the Browns, a little Cavalier talk in there. Still no word on who the manager of the Guardians is going to be, so whenever we get word on that, we'll break that down as well, right?
Yeah, we're thinking Craig Counsell, yes?
Well, Craig Counsell, that's a name we're hearing. So, if Screech is the guy, maybe he can help deliver to Cleveland what he took away from Cleveland back in 1997 when he scored the game-winning run in the World Series.
He certainly did. So you're right about that. But, yeah, I got a feeling that Counsell might be the guy. So we'll see what don't you think this week something's going to happen this week?
I would think so, Michael, right? World Series is over now. Free agency going to get underway. So you would think they've had enough time to interview who they needed to interview and, have narrowed it down or zeroed it in on one or two guys. And it may come down to contract years and monetary amount. They weren't afraid to pay Terry Francona. So hopefully they won't be afraid to pay the guy that they believe should be his successor.
I got to ask you real quick, because how you feeling about the Ohio State offense? Do they do any? I mean, you've been real critical of them over the course of the beginning of the season to start. Now, they had a little bit better second half, obviously, but we're down and put up 7 points again at halftimes. Why the slow starts? When are they going to get an understanding of that, they got to come out with some strong first halves, because – I mean, you keep playing with fire like this, you're going to get bit sooner or later.
Reg, I'm not a big McCord guy. He's got two weapons. When healthy, that helps, right? When Trevion Henderson's in there, night and day difference.
Oh, yeah.
He makes that average offensive line look better because he can get through the hole quicker, and then he's a home run hitter, right? We've seen that every game he's played this year. Marvin Harrison Jr., without question in my mind, the best football player in the country. I would take him number one over anybody or everybody and anybody in college football this year. I just think he's a generational type Randy Moss receiver that could impact somebody's team next year and for many years to come in the National Football League. So if they can find a way to keep those guys healthy, right? And McCord doesn't turn the ball over and start a little better, like you said, then, hey, they've got the, best strength of schedule, the best 2 wins of any teams out there, and they're number one. Now, will they drop because they struggled a little bit? Well, yeah, they struggled, but they still backdoor cover, right? 18.5 was the spread. So, that they covered it. Defensively, do they look like a number one team? Yes. Offensively, no. It's still a work in progress, which scares me a little bit, but they've got 2 more games to figure it out before they have to take on the cheater. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it hasn't been proven yet. The sign steal. Oh, that hasn't been proven. That team up north, they have 2 more weeks to get ready for whoever will be coaching the Wolverines when they play up there on, November 25th.
That'll be Jim Harbaugh. They'll be coaching the Wolverines. Now,
there are rumors tomorrow that a suspension could come out. So we'll see what happens with that.
2-game suspension is what I'm hearing.
2 games.
2 games, yeah.
So that'll be
which they're playing. They got Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State left.
Okay. So he'll be suspended twice in the same season. Has that ever happened before in Big Ten history?
I don't know. But I think everybody in Ann Arbor knows that regardless of how that plays out, Jimbo's going back to the NFL.
Yeah,
he's tired, and trust me, all you got to do is look at his years with San Francisco.
Right.
Oh, I think there'll be multiple teams that want to bring him in.
Oh, he's going to exit like Pete Carroll did amongst controversy, and he won't care. And nobody cared about Pete Carroll, and Seattle won a Super Bowl with him. So that's the way the NFL is. Can you help me? I don't care what you did in college with their rules. Our rules are different, So it may set Michigan back.
Like Carroll and you already got this history of success in our league?
Yeah.
You already played for a Super Bowl. You won 4 division. Come on back with us. So, yeah, I think that's the way this is going to play out, because it's pretty obvious that he is about had it with all the NCAA stuff.
Now, here's what I will say, though, Michael. I find it hard to believe, if this is proven to be true, that he knew nothing about it. And you just look at the numbers, 2-4 before the sign stealing allegedly started, and then they go 31-2 or something the next 2 years. So where there's smoke, there's fire, and I find it hard to believe that he knew nothing about Connor Stallions, even though he's standing right next to him with those sheets and everything like that. So,
if that's, I know this. They got a damn strong football team. Though they got damn good players, Kenny. And these are the guys that I feel bad for. I'll be honest with you. They're no different than the way I felt bad for the Ohio State the players during all the Jim Tressel unrest with the NCAA. It's the players, the ones that got them, that will end up ultimately paying. Is that not right?
Yeah. Either this year or next year should a suspension or what do you call it, a bowl ban or something be placed on them next year. Yeah,
the same thing. Well, that's exactly what happened. And the Ohio State players were the ones that did not get to ultimately compete for what they worked so hard to put themselves in position to do. Yeah. Now, whether or not you want to say so, and there again. Coaches that make decisions, ultimately, there again, you're hurting your players. These guys that you recruit and want to play for you. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, I think that's correct. I think there's a chance that he's going to get the 2-game suspension. He won't be with them at Penn State and Maryland, and then he'll be back for Ohio State.
It'll be interesting to see how this thing plays out.
Well, it sure will.
Great drama for
It
college
is great
football.
drama, but I've asked you before, and I want you to stay on top of this for me because, I don't care the way it happens. If Ohio State gets run for the third straight year, I'm Kenny, I'm sorry. I don't see how that's going to play out well for Ryan Day.
Well, I don't think it'll be. I mean, Michigan waited 5 years and gave Harbaugh the benefit of the doubt, right? So 3 years in a row with the cheating scandal, if it's proven, right? Maybe to be a factor in it, might buy him, another year. And if they still make it in the playoffs, then, he could, even though he lost to Michigan, like last year, right? They were a field goal away from being national champs, in my opinion, last year, right? If they beat Georgia, they beat TCU, no problem in my mind. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if two teams get in from the Big Ten, depending on who wins the Big Ten championship and who loses the Michigan Ohio State game. So I think there's still a chance, even if Michigan loses to Ohio State, they get in and have a chance to redeem themselves, just like there would be for the Buckeyes, which I didn't think would happen earlier in the year. But looking at college football right now, that to me, they're two of the best teams in the country right now. And so I think USC, forget about them. Oregon, Washington, I'm not sold on either one of those. Texas, so, right? So I think maybe two teams from the Big Ten could get in.
What about one-loss Alabama if they run the table from here on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If they end up playing Georgia in the national championship or the SEC championship game and beat Georgia, they're in for sure. If they lose that, they're out. But if Georgia's undefeated going into that game and they lose, do two teams from the SEC get in possibly, right?
Well, you're exactly right, which is what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Even if that's the national championship game, if that's the SEC championship game.
Yep.
And now this is assuming that neither one of them lose in the next couple of weeks, okay?
Right.
All right, but if that's the case, it's going to be the same thing as Michigan, Ohio State last year. Because, Kenny, trust me on this. If that's Georgia's only loss,
right,
you're going to keep the two-time defending national champion at they would be 12-1.
Right.
You're going to keep them out? No.
Right.
No.
Reg, the one team we forgot, Florida State. Florida State looks pretty good. I think that's a pretty good football team. So, Buckeye fans, Wolverine fans should be rooting for Georgia to beat Alabama to make it only one team from the SEC and maybe open that back door, right?
Absolutely, because we just laid out, if Alabama beats Georgia, and again, now we're assuming that that's their only loss. I'm telling you, they are not leaving out a two-time defending champion, Georgia, who goes 12-1. No.
I agree with you there. It would be two teams from the SEC, maybe Florida State if they win the ACC outright, and then one team from the Big Ten. That's it.
The Big Ten champion. Yeah.
Yep, that'll be it.
That'll be it. And in that case, probably then also it'd be the one-loss Michigan or Ohio State team that's left out.
Yes. They'd be number 5, and only the top 4 go this year, but that expands next year, and they won't have to worry about it as much starting next year. So a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about it. Always good to be with you, road man.
Yep. Sounds good, Reg. Look forward to chatting with you next week here on the R&R podcast. Thanks again to our producer, Ty Quartz, and everybody out there. Your loyalty. We appreciate your listenership and keeping up with R&R on the radio back in the day and now here where all the podcasts can be found. Subscribe to the Press Play Podcast Network so you get updates and information on all of the R&R podcast and everything that you hear on the Press Play Podcast Network. And a shout out once again to our outstanding sponsor, MGM Northfield Park. Give them a visit. I think you'll have a great time in the casino, at the track, and enjoy yourself there. And tell them Reghi and Roda sent you. See you next time, everybody.